Hola, ¿cómo estás? Welcome to the Keeping It Real podcast with Sulma, the swearing therapist. Hi, I'm Sulma Williams, a licensed clinical social worker who likes to keep it real and swears a lot. Today, I like to address the topic of abuse. Uh, Warning, it might be triggering for a lot of people listening. So I want you to be aware of that. Abuse takes a lot of different forms. It could be physical, it could be sexual, it could be financial, it could be verbal, it could be emotional. And it just doesn't happen overnight. A lot of times people are kind of like puzzled about why, let's say, in a heterosexual relationship between a man and a woman, and the man is abusive, like, why doesn't she leave? Um, she might she must like it, or a lot of comments like that, and it gets confusing because it is so clear to us that there is abuse going on, but statistics show that a woman is 8 times more likely to be murdered when she leaves her abusive partner than if she stays in the relationship. So a lot of times is a matter of self-preservation. A lot of other times, victims might not know that they are being abused, and this sounds kind of silly. Like, what do you mean? But it's like cultural components, and a lot of other things are part of like this dynamic that it doesn't happen overnight. So it's not like the motherfucker is telling you like, oh, don't fucking go out with your friends. That's not how abuse usually manifests. It manifests in this kind of way. I'm gonna go out with my friends. Oh, really? Why don't you just stay and we watch a movie? We don't spend that much time together anymore. Or I'm going to visit my mom. Oh, um, really? Like, I don't think she likes me that much. And like, I miss you when you are gone. Like, why don't you stay? So it is like you start isolating because, like, oh my God, he's so sweet. He wants to spend time with me. And then what happens is that family members and friends start like not inviting you anymore because you are always saying no. Or you realize that there are a lot of things that you're not talking about because you are ashamed of what's going on. Or so your family and friends don't know until it becomes so evident that you cannot hide it anymore. But at the beginning, there may be a lot of things that are happening behind closed doors that are so difficult to address, especially when you are in the situation. I was in an abusive relationship some 20 years back, and I didn't know I was being abused. I was being abused verbally and sexually, but I when my therapist told me I was so depressed, I was suicidal, and I didn't know why. And when my therapist told me, like, you're being abused, I was like, oh no, you're mistaken. He doesn't touch me. Because to me, abuse was the equivalent of physical abuse, and he wasn't touching me. Actually, it was the first time that he was physically abusive. That's when I called the police, and that was the beginning of the end. But up until then, he was controlling, he was verbally abusive, he was accusing me of cheating on him, he was accusing me of, like, if I didn't pick up the phone, why didn't you pick up the phone? Were you sucking someone's dick? And I was like, wow, what? Like, no, I don't cheat on you. Like, and I couldn't understand. I was so confused because I couldn't understand why would he accuse me of these things. And it wasn't until I was so in working with my therapist, she said, no, so because I was waiting for him to change, right? Because like after, so there is a honeymoon period, then there is the tension, and then the explosion, and then oh my god, he will come back and crying and telling me like, please don't leave, and I love you, and I'm not gonna do this anymore, and all those things. So I was waiting for him to change. And my therapist explained to me that the only one who could change with me because was me, because I don't have control over anyone else. So we start working on building my self-esteem and making me stronger rather than waiting for a miracle to happen. So in my case, the way that I got out of the relationship, because I told him many times in our fights, um, I I don't want to continue this, and he had threatened to kill me. He said, like, if you leave me, you better leave the state, because if you are not with me, you're not going to be with anyone else. And the last thing on in my mind was to fucking like go be with someone else. Like, motherfucker, like I just want to have peace of mind. Like I'm not fucking leaving your ass to be with someone else. But we started, so I called the police, and I started therapy, and he started therapy, and then we started couples counseling. And there was one particular incident where I knew that he was lying to me, and I kind of like prove it. And then we went to therapy. There was an incident over the weekend, and then we went to therapy, and the therapist always asked at the beginning, like, from 1 to 10, which number are you? And he was an 8, and I was like a negative 15, right? And she was like, oh, what happened? So he gave his version of the story, and then I gave mine, and then she said, do you trust him? And I said, no. And she said, why are you in the relationship? Well, because he has threatened to kill me if I leave. And so she was stunned, right, that I said it like that. And then she looked at him and she said, is that true? And he said, well, yeah, but I'm not going to do anything. And I said, how would I know that? And then he said, well, if she wants to leave, she's free to go. And let me tell you, like, I didn't need him to fucking repeat that. I pulled out my keys. I gave him his apartment. We had each other's keys, and we were not living together. I gave him his key. He gave me mine. But it took that neutral person where he couldn't change and twist the reality anymore to be exposed in front of the therapist, if you would, so that he will set me free, right? So, but it had gotten so bad over time. This is not an overnight thing. So it's not like overnight he was like, oh, you are cheating on me. He was like, start getting controlling slowly, and then kind of like, well, it started with a jealousy, and why are you I was getting spam emails, and he was like, who are you emailing with? And I'm like, motherfucker, I don't even know what this is, like. So but I like to tell you a little story about the frog in the boiling water, because I think that is so appropriate to understand abuse, right? Because like when we are looking at it from the outside, it's like, well, why the fuck don't you just leave? Like I will never allow anybody to treat me like that, right? But if you put a frog, here is the story, and I'm sorry I cannot like quote the person who I heard so many times, and I forgot who, when did I read it or where did I read it for the first time. But if you put a frog in a pot of water, in a pot of boiling water, the frog will jump out of the pot immediately. But if you put the frog in a pot of um, room temperature water, and then slowly and gradually you start raising the temperature of the fire, the frog is gonna die. It's gonna die because it starts to adapt to the new temperature of the water until he is so weak that he cannot jump anymore, and then he dies. And I think that is so appropriate to understand abuse, because if you're with a motherfucker who tells you like you fucking cheating on me, or don't go out with your friends, or whatever, you're gonna be like, fuck you, motherfucker, like watch me. But it doesn't happen like that. So in my case, I started working on myself to rebuild my self-esteem. He will drive me nuts. Like one day he will say like, oh, I'm so glad you are going to therapy because it seems to be helping you a lot. And then another day he will be like, are you sure that your therapist is a professional? Because you're not making any progress. Right. And I was like, oh my God. Or I will share something very personal, and then he will use it as a weapon against me. Right. So I was constantly on eggshells in uh, this situation, this whole situation kind of like inspired me to be a therapist, because I consider myself to be a smart person, but I didn't know I was being abused. So I wanted to kind of like bring awareness to the community, especially the Hispanic community, because in our culture, we like shut up and fucking cook and clean kind of thing, right? Like, so thank God that those things are changing, but um, that's how we are raised to not speak our truth, and to not stand up for ourselves, and to not be assertive when we are communicating. So you just take it until you cannot take it anymore. So if you are recognizing some patterns of abuse in your relationship, it could be a romantic relationship, it could be a work relationship, it could be a relationship with a family member, where like you are constantly be put down or make fun of, or you don't know what you're talking about. If you recognize any of those patterns, please, please, please ask for help. Ask for professional help. There are a lot of resources available. I used to volunteer at a shelter for women who had uh, been um, victims of domestic abuse, and it was just, I used to volunteer on Saturdays. We will take the children in to field trips to kind of like give the moms a break. And it's so prevalent, and it takes so much courage in planning to leave. It is possible to leave, but you need help and you need support, and you don't have to do it alone. So if you are in an abusive situation, I will encourage you to contact your domestic violence hotline in your area to, if at all possible, seek professional help. And the most important thing is your safety. If you have children, your safety and your children's safety. So it's not a matter of just fucking living, is a matter of doing it in a safe manner. For that, I encourage you to work on yourself, like I did with the help of my therapist, on building my self-esteem. And once you start doing that, you are going to, once you leave and you are safe and you are rebuilding your life, you're going to spot those fucking red flags like there is nobody's business. So there is hope after abuse, but the best thing that you can do is to, for yourself, and again, if you have children, for your children, is to seek help. We feel ashamed because we are in this situation, but actually the one who should feel shameful is the perpetrator. But we are covering for them, and subconsciously covering for them, and like, well, but it's my fault because I stay in that relationship, right? Like, and one of the another thing that is important to mention is that you love this motherfucker. So it's not easy to leave because you love this person. You love this person when he is nice and charming and sweet, and in the person that you fell in love with when you first started dating, not the fucking monster that tells you then that he is the only one who wants you, or like you're fat and ugly and nobody's gonna want you. Right? So it's like you love this person, which is a reflection of who you are as a person. I'm so fucking stupid because I love him. And no, you love him because you are a loving person. So once you start getting stronger and carefully selecting who you are going to give your love to, then everything starts changing for the best. I hope you found this helpful. Please, please reach out for help if you are in a situation or you know someone who is in this situation. And as I always, thank you so much for listening. Please hit subscribe and follow me on my Instagram at the Swearing Therapist. I'll talk to you next time. Bye.